Here we go again.
I just don't do nothing. I get those goosebumps every time you come around. You're on mine, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times. I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around me, throw that to the side.
And we're back again. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Loaded Mac NUFC away days for the big match preview. And I'm joined by the main man, Mr. Chris Hall, playing his piano. How are things today, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Yeah, busy day in work, but yeah, I'm not going to lie. I have been looking forward to the show with Neil for a very long time. I'm really excited to have him on. So always a pleasure, and yeah, should be a good show. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Great stuff. But yeah, so many in the chat already. Even Daz is in the chat. Great to see him in there. Tom Dixon, as always. Kendo, good to see you in there. Kamal, Colin, Jamie, PDK. Got to give a big shout out to PDK. He did mention right at the top. Had his last chemo, and obviously over the last 7 months been housebound and hospitalized. We know that because of the Loaded Boys. We've been talking to you, but for everyone else out there, during the time, apart from the family and friends, the one constant distraction from this crap time, and he has said that Loaded has made a difference in watching us, and we massively appreciate that. But we give you a massive shout out to that, PDK. Massive shout out, and obviously to Lisa as well. Look, hope you're well. Hope you're on the road now to recovery, and just to give you a big shout out on the back of that. We're right behind you, PDK. So keep fighting, mate. And as well, we have finally, Marty gave us our picture that we wanted. Our prize draw winner, membership winner, with the t-shirt, with the new shirt outside St. James's Park. Brilliant stuff. And look, another very, very happy member with their prize. And look, there'll be more to come, no doubt about it, in the coming weeks, that's for sure. But look, we're here to talk about the big game Sunday. And of course, on away days, the only way we do that is by getting fantastic opposition views. And it's an absolute pleasure to welcome back Neil from the Anfield Wrap. So welcome in, Neil. How are you?
Very well indeed. Pleasure to be on. Really looking forward to Sunday. I feel as though I don't know whether or not Newcastle managed to talk someone into let's have a big one before the August bank holiday. Let's have a big one at St. James's. Let's go. Because I tell you what, it'll be some Sunday in Newcastle, I'm saying.
Oh, definitely.
No one's got to get up for work on Monday. You best not let the side down.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're doing. Just throwing on that little bit of pressure.
I just want a big atmosphere for the boys, you know. I think it's important, and St. James's can bring it. There's no excuses.
Oh, Chris, there's going to be an atmosphere Sunday there.
Yeah, I think so. Neil, there's going to be an atmosphere in town, mate. I'm out with the boys. So I'm already. I've got a couple of Reds with me. I'm buzzing for it. Can't wait. So yeah, I'm fully prepped. Are you going, by the way, Neil?
I'm not this one, unfortunately. Money's a bit tight. Is the genuine reason why someone was on to me before saying, "Is there any hopes? Any hopes?" I just can't make it up, unfortunately. This time, if it had come later in the season, it might have been a bit better. But I've still got summer to deal with, so not this one, unfortunately. But I know everyone who's going is absolutely psyched up about it, and I know a lot of people are staying as well. I think there's a lot of people making a weekend out of it, either staying Saturday out or staying Sunday and out. So I think that's a good thing as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Look, Neil, I know we haven't got you for long. However, we're here to talk about Newcastle United versus Liverpool, the big game on Sunday. We know how big it is. You've talked about the atmosphere. However, is there a little bit of a spanner in the works with Mr. Mo Salah? Because as the rumours are swirling this afternoon, I was shocked to come out of work and I was like, what is this going on? We'll just run through the story. David Ornstein has said that there is concrete interest in Salah, but then added to it that Liverpool's stance remains that he's not for sale. But the Saudi Arabian club have talked about going all out to try and get him in this window. Look, what's your opinion on this? Where's your stance with regards to Mo Salah? And how realistic is it going to be with a week to go in the window that he's ended up in Saudi?
I just don't see it at all. To be honest, I'd be really surprised. His agent came out on August the 7th and said we're not going anywhere. We wouldn't have signed the contract if we wanted to move on. So I think I don't see anything that's changed since then in any significant way. I think also for me, it's interesting today when Gabri Veiga goes, Tony Cruz puts on Instagram that it's embarrassing that Gabri Vega's gone. And that to me is, I still think that there's footballers, for me, it's going to retirement. And people might not like that attitude, but that genuinely is what it looks like to me. I think it's, I love Roberto Firmino to pieces, and I still think he's got a career to be had in top flight football, but he rocks up to Saudi Arabia and scores a hat-trick on his debut. I think he only got one hat-trick for Liverpool, full stop, all the time he played for us. It is the equivalent. Right now, it might not be in 5 years, but right now it is the equivalent of going to retire. And Mo Salah is not interested in that. He keeps talking about wanting to break all sorts of records with Liverpool, win things with Liverpool. He's the closest he's ever been to walking out with the armband at Liverpool. I think that's a big deal to him as well. So I just do not see it at all in this summer. I think there's a chance it happens in the future. I'd rather it didn't anytime soon because I think he's got so much still to give. And I think he thinks he's got so much still to give. So I'm all... As I say, I'm just so skeptical of it. They can push as much as they want, but it takes three parties to make a transfer happen: the buying club, the selling club, and the player. And I just don't think the selling club or the player are going to be interested in it. So, it might be that people are testing the water, a view on can it happen next year and all that sort of stuff. But I do not see it happening at all this summer.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting stance with regards to that. And you mentioned about Salah not going. There were rumours kind of swirling around that he had already agreed sort of a contract with them. And it was purely then just about, could they agree a deal with Liverpool? So you're saying, in your opinion, that's not the case. You think Mohamed Salah doesn't even want to go?
No, his agent tweets on August the 8th, the last time this came up, we signed a deal with Liverpool because we want to stay at Liverpool. And I just don't see what changes that. If I refuse to believe if they'd have pushed, if there was any interest on Salah's side on August the 6th, he can say, well, how much money will you give us then? And I refuse to believe it wasn't as much as you want. Frankly, how much would it take? So I think this idea of, now they're going to push ever so hard. Well, I mean, he was Mo Salah 3 weeks ago. He's not become any more Mo Salah since. So I think that people can make some noise also. I just think it'd be going to a madhouse. You've only got to look at Al Ittihad, and at the minute, Benzema supposedly is falling out already with Nuno. Benzema might now be looking to move on. Nuno doesn't want him. There's other rules as well. There's a finite number of overseas players you can play in the AFC. So in their equivalent to the Champions League, I think you're limited to 5 per team. I think so much of the Saudi stuff's so chaotic, and I think it was chaotic anyway for us with Henderson and Fabinho, even though we ended up getting those deals done. I just don't see it at all. Right now, it's not a rational decision for a footballer who is at the top, not thinks, he does think it as well, but who is at the very top of the game. I just do not think it's a rational decision. And I think that if you look at most of the players who've gone there, not all, I think there's 1 or 2 exceptions, but I even think they're quite interesting. Like, I think if Barcelona had really wanted Ruben Neves, he'd be playing for Barcelona. if Newcastle had gone in for Gabri Vega earlier in the window, you were linked, we were linked, paid the release clause, he wouldn't be picking between that, Celta Vigo need the money, and Vega needs a move of some description as part of that. But I just don't think it'd be happening. So, I really would be astonished. I think it's got to look like, if you want to get top level professionals, a number of them out there, it's got to look like a genuinely attractive move. As I say, it to me looks like semi-retirement, and I just don't think Mo Salah's up for semi-retirement.
Chris, I want to get your opinion on this. Mohamed Salah, have you been in the chat with your Liverpool mates today, winding up that Salah's on his way out? What do you make of it all from your perspective? Can you see him leaving from all the links that have been going on this afternoon?
I'll admit I haven't. I've just been that busy with work. I haven't even had time to kind of put the fishing rod out with the lads yet. But I might do it later. But no, I mean, to be fair, Neil makes a really good point. Like Salah, the only thing for me that casts a doubt over Salah is the fact that it's the money involved. Like the money is ridiculous. Pete, you and I have spoken in the past about there's a perception that these Saudi clubs are paying ridiculous fees for players, and that's one thing that they're not actually doing. The transfer fees themselves are actually quite modest. It tends to be the wages that are really, really stupid. And I think potentially that's what could hamper the deal for Salah to go to Saudi Arabia. Not just the fact that, as Neil said, it's a bit of a retirement ground, but also the fact that I think Liverpool would go, all right, 200 million. And I can't really see them paying 200 million, if I'm honest. I don't think they would. I think they'd offer Salah ridiculous wages, and we've seen that with all the other players. But when you actually look at the transfer fees that all the Saudi Arabian clubs have paid for players, they're actually quite reasonable. I mean, some people may say 47 million or whatever it was for Ruben Neves is slightly on the high side, but even the likes of the Chelsea lads like Koulibaly and Mendy, they didn't go for silly sums. Henderson didn't go for a silly sum. Well, you could argue it was silly based on his age, but that's a separate conversation. But Fabinho, 40 million. It's not as if they're coming in and going, oh, here's 100 million, here's 300 million. They're just not. And I think to bring in someone like Salah, they would have to offer stupid money to get him off Liverpool. And then, as Neil says, it's a three-way deal. It would have to be agreement from Salah, agreement from Liverpool, and agreement from the Saudi club. And it is a little bit late in the window. So as much as I would like to see it, because I think that it would leave some Liverpool fans rattled, I'll be honest, I don't actually think it will happen. And you could argue that if Liverpool were to get 200 million from Saudi, and if they pay the money up front, the powers that be at Liverpool could end up going, well, actually, this is the perfect scenario. Neil may disagree, but if you've got 200 million guaranteed, what does that give you in FFP? Liverpool could then go out and spend close to $1 billion. If you do it in the amortization, it could end up being really silly. So it could actually be better if Salah stays at Liverpool, because otherwise it could turn into silly numbers.
It could. You're right. And someone mentioned in the chat, I can't find the comment now, with regards to Salah being considered a god out there. I'd mentioned it on a previous channel earlier on today. He would be considered a god out there, and in my opinion, I know Neil, you feel differently. In my opinion, if he was to leave and go to Saudi, like, he would be the poster boy. Forget Ronaldo, forget Neymar, forget Benzema. He would be the guy because of where he's from, and the fact
but I think we shouldn't flatten the whole region. There's not, for instance, there's lots of beef between Egypt and Saudi Arabia anyway. I don't think that it's not as we can end up just sort of reducing the geopolitics as though it's just one homogenous mass, and it very much isn't. So I think that even that's not as clean as, well, loads of Egyptians would like to see him go there. I don't think that's the case. I think they'd rather see him, for instance, play at the highest level and win the trophies at the highest level that he can win across the next sort of 3 or 4 years. That's the thing that, you wave the flag in that context, not winning a league thing. So, I think as part of that, whilst he is the most high profile Muslim footballer on the planet, I don't think that necessarily equals the idea that it's really straightforward for him to go over and want to do all of that at this point. So I'm quite, as I say, I would be genuinely shocked if anything can happen in football in that sort of way. That's the stuff we have to say all the time. But I'm very much of the view that I'd be genuinely shocked if this happened right now, because I just do not see. I don't see Liverpool acquiescing. I don't see, as you know, it is worth sort of pointing out that the fees would have to be so astronomical, and I think there is the desire to keep at least a degree of rationality around it on fees more than on wages. And then I think as part of it, the other part of it, he's got 2 years left on his deal at this point. So, I think it is a different situation full stop next summer. But even next summer, I think it's likely that he goes to Paris Saint-Germain than it is that he goes to Saudi Arabia. I really do. I think it's likely that he moves somewhere else, which will guarantee him an income and give him a chance to still win the very best prizes that could be in excess of the income that Liverpool can guarantee him. But I still do not, I think that he is so career-focused, so record-focused, so profile-focused, that I just really struggle to imagine the Saudi Arabian move.
We shall see. We shall see. What, seven days left in the window, something like that?
There's more than that in the Saudi Arabian window, which is going to be a problem for a lot of clubs. I will point out, there's going to be a lot of clubs who players are still getting linked, because I think the Saudi window goes 14 or 21 days longer.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe it won't end in 7 days. This could roll on and could be a conversation as we move forward. But look, an interesting one, and one kind of left field from where we were going to go to. But look, let's talk about Liverpool. Just assess for me, Neil, your start of the season. Is it what you expected? And double whammy here. Just talk us through your summer window so far. Are you pleased with it? Could you be doing more? Do you expect to do more? Just kind of round that up for us, where you're at from a Liverpool perspective.
Yeah, I think they're both good players, and I think that's the constant theme of Liverpool in the transfer market is they buy well. It's just whether or not they buy enough. They very rarely buy a stinker. There's been very, very, very few duds all the way through. You can maybe make an argument around Naby Keita, but then Liverpool in the end have had to pay every single clause in Naby Keita's add-ons, because Liverpool won every trophy they could win whilst Naby Keita was at Liverpool. So, I think it's worth saying that the very rarely bought duds in the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years since Klopp's been in. But have they done enough? And I'd still like to see them do a little bit more in this window. I think there's an argument, if they're going to persist with this change of system, they need a couple of defenders who fit it a bit better. I think they're broadly all right for numbers, but fit is a separate question. I'm not that comfortable with the idea of Joel Matip covering Konate. I think his best years could well be behind him. And I don't quite see how Kostas Tsimikas fits in the idea of playing a slightly more left-hand sided centre-back role versus just sort of an attacking left-back role. I think Robertson has struggled a little bit with the system change, but I think he's actually played well last couple of games. But I think Liverpool could do with having a left-hand sided centre-back option in a sort of a Dan Burnish way, if we are going to persist with the system with Trent coming in and joining in midfield. I think that there's an argument around them getting one more body for the middle of the park. I think Liverpool will take an interest in Ryan Gravenberch all the way to the end of the window from Bayern Munich. And I think he might well be the one that they've got their eye on as one they can mould into being the sort of number 6 that they want. And then from there, I think that they'll end up settling on that, and I think that it's, as I say, I think they're both really, really well. Szoboszlai's a cracking buy. Really, really good player. Looks the business. McAllister, I think, will prove to be pound for pound the signing of the window. 35 million. Liverpool got a hell of a deal on that one, and he's great. And I think him getting released and pushing up the pitch will be good for us. I'm happy enough with the profile of Endo, in that I think they just needed someone who can come in and be a safe pair of hands. But I don't think he's necessarily medium term, even a starter for Liverpool, and that's where someone like Gravenberch comes in.
I was sorry to interrupt, Neil. Yeah. He wasn't really your first choice, was he? Because
Caicedo was obviously the first choice. They were prepared to pay 110 million for him, so he's the first choice. But they couldn't make Caicedo happen. They were never entirely convinced, I don't think, about Lavia. I think they had Lavia as one that they built as a project, but then I think they felt that they wanted one to start. So they've ended up with a more mature option to say that, he's 30 years old, and there's a couple of questions around, for instance, his pace on the turn. But he's been doing well enough in Germany. I don't feel it's the end of the world. And I think that there's so much quality elsewhere in the Liverpool squad that it's not, I'd rather have a 23-year-old Fabinho, don't get me wrong. but that footballer Liverpool haven't been able to get hold of. And sometimes what Liverpool haven't been that good at is compromising. So I think them compromising is good in the same way that I think they still need to compromise on defence. So I'm quite, I think they need to get 1 or 2 in before the end of the window. And if I say I'm in the minority of Liverpool supporters on that, that's not the case. There's still other Liverpool supporters who would rather they prioritise midfield first and foremost. But I feel as though they've got themselves into a half-decent position there. I'd rather see them go and sign a defender of some description, ideally one who can play that left-hand sided role as well, or compete with Konate and Matip. So, as ever, the question isn't have they bought well, they have. It's just whether or not they bought enough.
Just to jump in, sorry, Pete, really quick. I'm sorry, Pete, if this is where you were going, but it was interesting when you were talking about the central defensive midfielders you were linked with, Neil. We were also linked with this particular player I'm going to bring up, and I just wondered if you'd heard anything or if you knew the reason why the interest had stopped, because apparently Liverpool went ahead of Newcastle in the interest, and that's Kefim Thuram from Nice.
Yeah. I just think no one's quite sure how good he is. And I think he's very much a project. I think he's a developmental player. And I just don't think anyone knows how good he is. And, I think he's one with a very high ceiling, but you've got to pick him if you're going to get there. And the idea of where everyone is now in the Premier League, if you're in that top 9 of the Premier League, you've not really, apart from maybe Brighton, you've not really got that much room to pick lads who aren't going to succeed for you relatively quickly because the pressure's on. And, I think the other 8 who aren't Brighton, the only results, there's not a luxury here of giving 5 games, let him make his mistakes, work on them, go from there, because you don't want to be losing games. And as our start of the season, I think we played really well against Chelsea for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then from there we just found ourselves a little bit swamped, because I think Chelsea worked it out for one reason. I think Chelsea actually played well for 40 minutes, and then they're knackered. And then we probably should go on and win the game. I think there's a couple of bits in there as the game wears on where we get a couple of chances to create chances. Chelsea don't have a shot after 75, but we just couldn't quite take advantage at that point. But I took a point at Stamford Bridge before a ball was kicked, not dissimilar to Sunday. And then we play really poorly for 15 minutes against Bournemouth. But from 25 to the sending off, we absolutely dominate the game. And even 10 minutes after the sending off, we go from 2-1 to 3-1. We swamp them down to 10 men. We play really well. I think they're a good side. I think they'll come sort of 13th, 14th. Bournemouth, I think they're a relatively tidy team. So it's a nice enough win. I think they're going to. I think it'll be really interesting when they play Tottenham at home this weekend. Actually, I think Tottenham could be in for a big first half an hour there, where they might cop for one. But I feel as though we're. I'm happy enough with the start. I think there's a couple of things that still need tightening up. A couple of things still need working on. I wouldn't be averse to, as I say, another 2 or 3 players coming in. But, I think the most important thing for us is we're now 13 unbeaten in the league, going back into last season. And it's getting not much chat that. We're 13 unbeaten in the league and we haven't lost a home game since last October. And that's the only home game we've lost in front of humans since April 2017. So, I think we're in slightly better nick than our press, than the chat around us, including from Liverpool supporters, would suggest. Slightly better, not massively better, but slightly better nick than that would suggest. And we've got an array of forward options. The goalkeeper's terrific. So I think it's going to be a big game on Sunday. And I think, for me, I fancy Liverpool to do really well, to play well. But I would take a point. And the reason why is I think it's important that Liverpool keep the unbeaten run they're on going for as long as possible.
We're going to get into that in just a second. What we're going to finish on with regards to talk about Liverpool before we talk about Newcastle. I want to get your opinion on this, Chris, as well, is that, if you don't get the improvements now, between now and the end of the window, where do you see yourselves finishing in the Premier League? You finished 5th last season, just behind us. But with the signings that you've made, do you think they're enough to move yourselves forward, maybe closer to Arsenal and Man City? Or
I think we're better than Arsenal.
Just before that,
I think we're better than Arsenal. Yeah, I think we've got better players than Arsenal. And I think you see that in the 2-2 draw with them at Anfield, where we're absolutely terrible for 25 minutes. And then we wake up and man for man, right the way across the pitch. I thought we were a better side from that point. I think we've got. I think there's questions around who comes in a few areas. If things aren't going well for us, but I think we've got a far better goalkeeper than Arsenal. I think Virgil van Dijk remains the best centre-half on the planet, even though he's not by a mile the best centre-half on the planet anymore. If he can, I think he can get himself there and knock around that level. He's worst case scenario, he's an elite centre-half. I think Konate has been excellent for Liverpool, and the questions about his fitness, not about his level. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold's the best deep line playmaker in the world. As far as I'm concerned, that's what he is in there as well. I think that Andy Robertson's an excellent attacking left-back. There's a question about the system in there, and that's a valid one. But Andy Robertson is an excellent attacking left-back. And then you move forwards. I think that McAllister showed last season and in the World Cup what a footballer is. I think he's a really tidy player. I like Szoboszlai a great deal. And then, I think Curtis Jones ends the season brilliantly for Liverpool. And then you look at the attack, and Liverpool have got the best 5 squad options as an attacking force in the world. Just in the world. You look at those 5 of Salah, Nunez, Jota, Diaz, and Gakpo. No one's got anything to hold a candle to that in terms of all 5. So this is why I don't think we should be shy about it. And if you look from around sort of even January, even when we were crap last season, and you look at the run, Arsenal don't get that many more points than us from Christmas onwards. I think it's only about 4 or 5 from the turn of the year, Arsenal. So, and I like Arsenal. I think they're a good side, don't get me wrong. And I think we need to be aware of the fact that 9 of the best teams in the world, possibly 9 of the best 20 teams in the world, or best 25 teams in the world play in the Premier League now. That's the level that it's at. That's the level the Premier League's at. So, in this case, there's much to much. But genuinely, I think we'll take 4 points off Arsenal this season. Genuinely. So I'm not... City are a different kettle of fish, and I think everyone's got to acknowledge that City are a different kettle of fish. I think there's one team, then there's 8 teams, and then there's 11 teams, or maybe even one team, 8 teams, and then 6 or 7 teams, and then 5 teams that include Everton. There's not, but in that, I think that Liverpool are as good as anyone. Where you look at the first 11, and then in a couple of areas, as I say, like up front, I think that Liverpool have got strength and depth there that other sides just simply don't have. So. And the key part about this is, and this is what I point, there's no hiding places for Liverpool. My point here is that there's an onus on them to perform. I want no apologies. I want no one sulking. I want no one talking about transfers. The manager himself has said there's no excuses. The money's not an excuse, and he's right. So for me, Sunday's another game where Liverpool need to go and get a result and show they're a serious football team. And then they play Villa the game after, where we drew 1-1 last season. We've got to beat them at home and show that we're a serious football team. Then in the next run of games, you've had a really hard first 4, Newcastle. We've got a much harder first 8 than anyone else in the country, because in the next run of games we've got to go away to Brighton and away to Tottenham, and we've got to not lose those games as well and show we're a serious football team. And that's what matters here. Liverpool underperformed last season, underperformed massively, and by the standard of the players, underperformed massively. So, and ended up still finished 5th, still finished well ahead of Tottenham, still finished well ahead of Chelsea, but we were crap and circumstances didn't help. But regardless, we weren't good enough. The manager wasn't good enough. The players weren't good enough. But we're still now unbeaten in 13. We weren't good enough, but we're unbeaten in 13. That's the level Liverpool are at.
Chris, do you, really quickly before we go on to Newcastle, do you see Liverpool in a title race this season? Obviously, Neil has talked up Liverpool, says they're better than Arsenal, in his opinion. Do you see them better than Arsenal and mounting a title challenge? Because that's kind of the level, really, where the Arsenal set last season. Do you see them being there?
I think from an attacking point of view, definitely. I agree with Neil that the 5 they've got up front are particularly strong. When you look across all the other teams, not just in the Premier League, but across Europe, as Neil says, Liverpool are ridiculously strong. My biggest concern, and I'm sure Neil knows far more about it than me, but from what I've seen, and obviously when I speak to my other red mates, the big concern for me, well, there's 2. The first one is the midfield, because obviously I've seen, and it looks like going forward that Klopp's going to be operating, the likes of Gakpo, the likes of Szoboszlai playing in the middle, and then McAllister's there as well. But for me, it looks glaringly obvious that they need like a kind of holding midfielder, and that will play its part, I think, on Sunday. That's where I think that we could capitalise. I'm not saying we will, but we could. Whether or not the Klopp decides to play Trent there, I don't know. But then it leaves the question, well, who's going to play right back? And we've saw in the past, the likes of Milner playing right back. And I agree with Neil. I think they're probably another 2 or 3 signings away from feeling comfortable with that squad. But I wouldn't rule Liverpool out from a title challenge because this is Liverpool, and we've, in the past I've written them off, and then they've gone and, broken records or, defied the odds. But me looking at it now as things stand, I think they're one or two or three players away from really seriously mounting a title challenge, and I might be way off saying that, but I would say as a squad, and I don't even know, maybe start 11, but maybe as a squad, I think Arsenal are probably stronger at the minute. But we're talking, like I've said, 1, 2, 3 players away, and Liverpool would comfortably be stronger than Arsenal, in my opinion. But I think with Arsenal having that real strong base, especially in the middle of the park, I think that gives them advantage. So far, Liverpool, they've picked up the points. They've done what they needed to do. I think a point away at Stamford Bridge is good. And then obviously they've put Bournemouth to the sword, even though it was a shaky start. The real test for me will be Sunday. And I think if we perform to the best of our ability and we put Liverpool away, it wouldn't surprise me with the remaining days left in the window if Liverpool went out and did a Caicedo. I'm not saying, they will, but there'll be another defensive midfielder out there. Endo could do the job, but maybe they're looking for that, that Premier League experience, or somebody who can come in and just they know is going to perform straight away. And that's my concern from a Liverpool perspective.
I can see how people end up there, and I think that's where a lot of Liverpool supporters have ended up. I think that no one can have any confidence the mountain a title challenge apart from Manchester City. I think that there's points last season where Arsenal are getting away with absolute murder. I don't think that's... And that's part of what you do, by the way. I don't mean that disrespectfully. What I mean is I think that Arsenal did a really good job last season of riding the luck. I think that if you even look at the way in which the games go, they end up with an obscene number of points from the first half of the season. But this is part of riding the luck. This season they've got Champions League football to worry about. Last season they made 8 changes a game and were in the Europa League. City last season, there's conversations around how convincing they were. They end up doing a treble. They were played 14, 32 points. That's 2.2 a game. They were played 28, 64 points. And there was this idea of, they're finding it a bit hard. The way last season operates, for the sides that had Champions League football, because of the World Cup, they were playing it in a compressed period. So in between the gaps, you basically went league game, Champions League game, league game, Champions League game, league game, Champions League game, league game, and then there was a break. And then you went and did the same thing again. And one of the reasons why City don't quite hit their straps until later on is that's an unbelievable schedule. Well, United and Arsenal had Europa League football. Arsenal were making 9 changes a week. Odegaard only makes his first Europa League appearance in the games against Sporting that they get knocked out in. United were making 7 or 8 changes. Newcastle didn't have European football. Liverpool, Chelsea, and Tottenham all did, and they ended up having the seasons that they had. And I think that the lived reality of what that is, and trust me, it won't be as intense this season because of the World Cup period for Arsenal, Newcastle, and Manchester United. But I don't think they've demonstrated that they've got the ability to go game, the way in which you have to do to push through at that level. And as I say, I even think it's took its toll on City last season in the first half of the season. So that's some lived reality. So I don't feel as though Arsenal, Man United, or Newcastle are all sure things by any stretch of the imagination over the course of the campaign. And I think even there, the thing that Newcastle have got is I think Newcastle look a really well-built squad where everyone understands the role and everyone understands what the job is and everyone understands how they contribute. But for instance, I don't think there's, as it stands, and I think that by the end of the season, we might be talking about it differently around Isak and Gimenez as an example, but I don't think there's absolute standout World 11 style footballers in that Newcastle squad, the way in which there is in a couple of other people's, but everyone knows their job and that helps massively. I think you look at United, the way they've started the season, and look a bag of rags, and there's big holes absolutely everywhere. I've watched both Arsenal games, weirdly, and they've been all right, but they're not sort of shocked me. And then I think that there was, I don't know how you all found the game at the Etihad, but I thought it was a bit of a sobering one. The extent to which City were able just to keep Newcastle at arm's length in there, I thought it was, it actually bored the life out of me, and I wanted Newcastle to find some way to bring the noise, and it just never really comes apart from one chance to create a chance in the second half. So I'm a bit of a skeptic, I'm a bit of a skeptic of everybody apart from City, and you can make an argument against everybody. The way in which you can make an argument for Liverpool is, I think having the best strike force in the world and having the best goalkeeper in the world is often a good place to start. I think it helps massively, and then you work the rest out as you go a little bit. So That's why if I sound confident, I'm not confident. I'm just not as negative as a lot of other people. And that's a different thing. You know, I can see a world where Liverpool build a season. And that's why I keep coming back to it. The most important thing is Liverpool don't lose a daft game or don't lose any game for a period. If we can get to game 8 unbeaten, you know, if we can go to Newcastle, Brighton and Spurs and not lose and pick up points in the other ones, even if they're just all draws, if we get to play 16 points on the board, I'm absolutely delighted, because our next 4 after that are Everton, Forest, Luton and Brentford in some order of homes and aways. So we've just got to hang in. And that's how you build a season. And that's what we need to do this season. It's what Newcastle did brilliantly last season. They build a season. And then suddenly you get to January and it's like, Christ, look where we are. And we need to do a bit of that, but from a slightly higher base. And that's what I'm arguing we can do. We can get to the point of going, Christ, look where we are. And that's what we need to do. But we need to ride our luck to get there.
I think that's kind of what we need to do as a club with Newcastle, because like you said, our first 5, Villa at home, City away, Liverpool at home, then we go away to Brighton, and then we've got Brentford. Like, that's a tough 5 games. So and as a 5-game period, it was the toughest of the Premier League. Like you said, as an 8, you've got the toughest of the lot over a longer period, but. Am I right, Chris, that we just need to hang in there? We need to stick in there. It's a tough start to the season, and then things will start to kind of mellow its way out. But going back to it, is it a way that we need to bounce back on Sunday after the defeat? Neil talked about it. It wasn't the best performance. We know that. It could have been better. But what better way to bounce back at St. James's Park against Liverpool with all the history around it?
Yeah, no, 1,000,000%. I mean, it's going to be difficult, and we're going in confident. But to be fair, I went into the game at the Etihad last week confident, and we didn't quite. You're right, Pete. We didn't quite turn up and perform in the way that we should have. But I think with this game at the weekend is huge, and it kind of sets that marker, and it can set the tone for the rest of our season, or certainly up until January, so that you've got a good base to work from. We know that we're going to have the extra pressures of the Champions League, and that people won't come to play Newcastle now and think, oh, Newcastle aren't bad. They're going to be looking at us differently now. A lot of the clubs will class us now as, a top 6, top 7, top 8 club. So people are going to set up differently against us, and they're going to be trying to, grind out 1-0 victories or try and get a point. So that's going to be an added pressure for us going forward. In terms of the actual game on Sunday, like, it's huge, and none more so than for me, because I'm fed up of going out with my mates to go to town to go and watch the match, and you just get bounced everywhere. And I'm going into this confidence. I've as you say on the 12th man, Pete, I've stuck my chest out. I'm going in confident. I'm feeling like we can actually do something and maybe even get the 3 points. But if we don't, and if we perform similar to how we did against City, where we give maybe Liverpool too much respect, or if we kind of stand off a little bit too much, it does concern me. And even last season, when we played at St James's Park, I was like, yeah, we're going to win. And then we all know what happened. And then Nick Pope, and then my blue mate was then equally enjoying that, because he can't stand Nick Pope and he thinks Jordan Pickford's the best thing since sliced bread. And then Jordan Pickford did that. Nick Pope did that, and then that was just my night ruined. So I'm going in confident, and I think it's a great opportunity for us, and I just hope that we put that marker down. But equally, Liverpool have a really good team, and yes, I think we'll win, but there is still that element of doubt, and there always will be when it comes to playing teams like Liverpool.
Neil, I know I've not got you for too much longer, but we've talked about a number of other clubs in kind of where you see them at. Over the course of the season, with what Newcastle have brought in, so we've got Sandro Tonali initially, Harvey Barnes is coming from Leicester. We've then gone and got Tino Livramento from Southampton and Lewis Hall. Some argue that we're maybe not done. Who knows? It seems to be that we're done, but we never quite know. Judging that window and judging where Newcastle are right now on the back of what we did last season, where do you see Newcastle, performing this season? With Champions League football on top of that, as you've mentioned, the cup competitions, how do you see us kind of evolving and performing as the season wears on?
I think that's the key question, is about the thing that we can't measure. So I think Harvey Barnes is a great signing. I like the look of Tonali. He looks a really good player. Livramento, I liked a great deal. Obviously, there's a fitness question around him. Not to say he's going to be injury prone, but it'll probably take him 3 to 6 months to get his sea legs. But I think when he gets them, I think he'll be great. And he's a really neat succession plan as well. And I liked Lewis Hall when I saw that he actually played at Anfield last season, and I thought he's tidy. So none of these are bad footballers. It's all good recruitment. The key question is, how does it feel when you play Wednesday away at AC Milan at the San Siro, and then on Saturday you're asked to go to Old Trafford? That's the key question. When you've got no time to do a tactical plan, really, for the game at Old Trafford, because Thursday's your recovery day. Friday, you just pull something together. You can't work on the training pitch. Last season, Newcastle had a run where they had a lot of time between games and could arrange things and pull together a decent little squad and get everyone functioning, and that helps massively. And when your legs are heavy, when you get into October, November, when you're playing those games, and I don't think Newcastle can blow the Champions League. I don't think they can half-arse it, because there's too much pride. St James's is too much of a place. St James's demands that Newcastle commit to every Champions League game. That's where your first 11's playing. And then what does it look like midweek when you've got to make your changes? I think that's difficult, and I think it's a bit of an ask. But I think that the manager's a good manager, and I think that these are good players. So, I think across the board there, you've got to see how that settles. And I still think the same question applies for Arsenal. I don't think there's some sort of magic formula that Arsenal have got, when that suddenly starts to kick in. And for us, we've got to deal with Thursday, Sunday, which is also a bit different for us, and work that out. But at least we should be in a position to be able to make more changes and play the first team in the league games and play the weaker side in the Europa League games. Not a weakened team, not a second-class team, but make 6 or 7 changes and pick our moments a little bit. So I'm very, I think it's going to be really, and also the team I think who we're going to struggle with it the most are Manchester United. Not least because I think they're fucking crap, but also because, they've shown an inability to deal with big games away from home. They've only won 1 game against the teams that finished in the top 12 last season, now in 13 attempts, haven't lost at Spurs. So when, if United get Barcelona in the Champions League group stages, they've got to pick the first 11, but that first 11 could still get whacked. And then they come back for the weekend and, look a bit of a mess. So I think it's chaos. Genuinely, I think beneath City, who've obviously got the pedigree, I think it's chaos. So but the flip side of that is, I think there's every chance that, for instance, Newcastle are 8 points clear of Manchester United, wherever Arsenal and Liverpool are. Newcastle are 8 points clear of Manchester United come October. Also, last season when Brighton started to play the games in hand, De Zerbi's abilities began to wobble a little bit, because 2-3 games a week just makes it different. So I think it's hard to guess where everyone is. But I think Newcastle have obviously recruited well. He's a good manager. They're good players. They know the jobs. It'll be difficult to go to Newcastle at any time. I think we've got a really tough time to go on Sunday. But yeah, good side is the answer.
Okay. Redeem some of that good feeling back after that comment.
There's a point here in the comments. Andrew Anderson said, if Tottenham can make it into the Champions League final, why can't Newcastle? And I think that's a really valid point. And also, I think that it's important, as I say, that it's taken deadly seriously. But the flip side of that, though, is that your league form will suffer, or will probably suffer, because it's dead hard to do Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, all that sort of stuff. It's hard. There's a reason why it takes you. It's literally a matter of experience to do it. It takes some getting used to, and also to get over the idea. You go away somewhere, you get beat, you come back. Because you're playing difficult sides, you're going to get beat. Everyone gets beat at some point. It's going to be hard.
Chris, you had a couple of questions before we let Neil go, because he's got to go in literally about a minute.
Yeah, no worries. I'll do a quick one. So Kendo asks you, Neil, who's your favourite Liverpool manager and player?
Ever? Christ. I mean, in a daft way, I'm always very much about the now and enjoying the now. But, I absolutely loved it when Benitez was manager to pieces. Loved Kenny, obviously. How could you not love Kenny? Growing up, loved John Barnes. And my answer to favourite ever Liverpool player is probably Mo Salah, because he's the best one I've seen.
Yeah, that's fair enough, mate. That's fair enough. This is a really interesting one from Shane Mawson. He says, what's a pass mark for Núñez performance-wise this season?
15 goals, all comps, maybe a bit more. As simple as that. And I think that goes for all 5 of Liverpool's forwards. And Liverpool got 5 forwards who are all capable of banging 15. So Salah's on 1, Jota's on 1, Diaz is on 2. As we sit here now, I think we've only scored 4 goals. Is that right? Yes, it is. So we've scored 4 so far, and that's where they all are. I think they're all capable of hitting 15 plus. Salah 25 plus, and it wouldn't surprise me if one of the others is capable of hitting more than 20. All comps.
Yeah.
Neil,
and then
just one more quick one. Sorry,
just one more really quick one. Right, Tom Dixon asks, who do you think will win the title this season? And it's going to be a good one.
I think the smart money's always going to be on City, but I think we'll have a greater sense of that by around Christmas. I think if someone can keep pace with City till Christmas, then it could be really, really interesting. There's a chance no one keeps pace with City, not least because City's first 8. I mean, I think they play an 11 that I've organised at one point. It seems mad. City's first 8. They played the lads I play 6-a-side with somehow in mid-September. But I think keeping pace with City, we've got to see who that is. But with a bit of luck, that's Liverpool. I think if it's not Liverpool, I think they might stroll it. And that's not me being rude about anyone. I just think that everyone's going to find that the teams who, Arsenal, for instance, will find it difficult with Champions League football as well to keep pace with them. They might have a plan. The other thing I'd point out is that Arsenal massively overperformed expected goals last season. Scored 85 goals against an expected 61. You can say it's good finishing, but at some point that reverts to mean. And they haven't really added a ton of attacking talent.
That's fair.
Excellent. Right. Neil, I know you need to shoot. So
it's always been a pleasure. It's just a shame I've got to go and do something else. So I will see you all later on. And thanks everyone for the comments.
Just before you go, prediction?
Prediction is I would take a draw, but I think Liverpool will win the game 2-1. But I would take a draw, which is respective of where Newcastle are at the moment. And also just my own shout out to the chat PDK. I think building these sorts of communities is really important for people, and this is an example of it, and all of that goes in all directions. So the fact that he's shown such love at the start is absolutely phenomenal, and it's part of what we're doing here. It's part of why I come on things like this, not just loads of but other things, and do what we do with the Anfield Wrap. So a massive shout out to him as well, and to all of you who've stood together and hung around as a community. You know, whatever we think about the football and whatever we think about things pertaining to football, the most important thing is us all together enjoying it. So, and Chris, enjoy your night out on Sunday, whichever way it goes. See you later.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you very much, Neil.
Neil, you take care. Speak to you soon. Neil is absolutely nailed it. Exactly that. Enjoyed Team for Life is said exactly that, and so many others are coming in with comments. PDK, we are 100% behind you, and this is, you know what, Chris, we've said it so many times. Like, this is why we love doing what we do. Is that not only do we get to talk with like-minded Newcastle fans in the chat, you have great comments, you have great opinions, but if we can help just one person, feel better or to give them a better day where they can smile and enjoy and get involved in something, it kind of makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And I thought it was really nice, Neil mentioning that just as he was leaving there. And, PDK knows we all think the world of him, but the fact that, his comments and, Neil's thoughts are with PDK, it's just really nice. And Neil's right, we all do this, don't we? And we all come together as a bit of a community, and it's nice that everyone's kind of linked in together and we all kind of have our opinions on football. We may agree, disagree, but ultimately it's just about, the fact that we all, we all come together and we all share a love of football.
Definitely. Look, we're not going anywhere, not yet anyway. There's a few more bits that we want to get through before the show is over. Look, guys, Neil's gone now. Is Salah going? Really? Is he going?
He did kind of give me the good sell though, because when he finished like his little, speech on it, I was a bit like, actually, he's got a point. And as I said in my point, Pete, it's going to cost a lot of money, and I don't know whether they're going to pay the Reddies up front. I think FSG would take it, but would Klopp literally just put a stop to it and just go no? Because really, if he goes, mate, what are they going to do?
Everybody in the Premier League will be kind of rubbing their hands together.
Oh yeah,
Salah left Liverpool before the window.
You take 25, 30 goals out that Liverpool team, where would they finish?
Exactly. Who would they sign? Who would they sign to replace him? There was someone in the chat made a really good point. I can't remember who it was, but they said, with the array of talent that Neil's talked about, with regards to what they've already got without Salah, you could argue they wouldn't need to sign anybody. But I just think from my perspective, they have to keep him for them. But as I've said it before, if he leaves, that's a huge hole that cannot like.
How do you replace it?
Yeah, it is. It's like it's like when Alan Shearer left Newcastle. Like he was Mr. Newcastle. He is the main man, the record goal scorer, the guy that kind of pulled us out the crap all the time, and that hole never really got filled, not completely. Even now, since he left the club, like Mohamed Salah, what he's built at Liverpool, I don't think you could fill that hole like that. You just couldn't. But I'm of the opposite opinion. I actually think that Salah wants to go, and I think that Neil, whether he's doing it consciously or not, I actually think he was playing it down slightly from my perspective.
He's got to, because he's probably looking at it and thinking we can't afford that. I agree with you, Pete. And when you were talking about legends leaving and how do you replace them, Andy Carroll.
Yeah,
that was a bad one, Pete. No, I'll be honest, and I'm saying that in jest a little bit, but genuinely, I was distraught when he left, because at the time he was the prodigal son, wasn't he? He brought us back up from the Championship, and it was a big love in. We've got our new number 9, we've got our new Alan Shearer. I know we played slightly differently to Shearer, but he was meant to be the next big thing, and then gone. And I remember just thinking, wow, and we're comparing that to a Mo Salah who's broken all kinds of records, won all kinds of trophies with Liverpool. So if he was to go, that's scary. That's really, really scary from their point of view.
It's going to be really, really interesting. And really, really interesting. But look, I did say to you, we're not going anywhere just yet, because the section of the show we haven't yet covered.
Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize your neighborhood. And whosoever shall be found without the soul for getting down must stand and face the hounds of hell and rot inside a corpse's shell. The foulest stench is in the air, the funk of 40,000 years, and grisly ghouls from every tomb are closing in to seal your doom. And though you fight to stay alive, your body starts to shiver, for no mere mortal can resist the evil of the thriller.
Evening, lads.
I like magic. He always appears. How you doing, Keith? Double Edged Stato,
really
Dr.
well.
Doom, whatever your name is nowadays. I have no idea. We've lost count, I think, Chris, haven't we?
Yeah. Keith's got about 100 nicknames, but that's credit to the man. Do you know what I mean?
And that's on this forum as well.
Yeah, I know. You have to share the other ones with us, Keith.
Absolutely. I hope you're both well and anyway.
Good, mate.
All good. Sorry you missed Neil. You had to take a call, so you had to drop off a little bit earlier. But look, what stats you got for us this week? Fingers crossed there's at least some decent ones from St. James's Park. Fingers crossed.
Strap yourself in. This is going to be rocky, just like it was last week. But I'm hopeful to put a couple of positive spins on it and round off on a high. So...
Oh, he's frozen. Just as he was about to give us the stats.
Oh, he's back. He's back. You're back, Keith.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, hopefully I'll stay on. Newcastle's record against Liverpool in the Premier League since 93-94. Played 56, won 11, drawn 12, and lost 33. So clearly an advantage there for... clearly an advantage.
Oh,
We've lost him again.
Therefore, Liverpool in that one. Newcastle's record against Liverpool in the Premier League is slightly better at St James's Park when you just look at the St James's Park fixtures. Played 28, won 10, drawn 7, and lost 11. So just almost neck and neck there. 34 goals for Newcastle, 46 for Liverpool. Number of goals in this fixture overall is 171. 113 for Liverpool and 58 for Newcastle. And Liverpool have also got the better defensive record as well, 18 clean sheets to 8 for Newcastle. Newcastle they haven't won in any of the last 13 games. Unlucky for Newcastle against Liverpool. They've drawn 4 and they've lost 9, including 4 defeats in their last 4 games over 2 seasons. Liverpool were the first away team to win last season, as we're aware as well, at St James's Park in all competitions, it has to be said. Arsenal, the only other side to win at St James's last season in any competition. Newcastle's last win in this fixture came in the 2015-16 season, and it was 8 years ago in 2015, so we've got to put that right. Winning 2-0, they won 2-0 that night with Gini Wijnaldum scoring twice in the 90th minute, and that's when Steve McLaren was the manager, so it shows you how long that was. Moving on to the general Premier League stats for the managers. Jurgen Klopp, he has a really good record against Newcastle. He might whinge a lot, but he actually likes playing Newcastle because he's played 14, he's won 9, he's drawn 4, and he's only lost 1 match against Newcastle. Whereas Eddie Howe, and it's got to be said that his record mostly is with Bournemouth manager. Against Liverpool, he's played 7. He's managed 17. He's only won 1. He's drawn 1, and he's lost 15. So we've got to get some better luck with that come the weekend. Mo Salah, moving on to players. Mo Salah, he scored 30 goals in 51 games last season. And Darwin Núñez, he scored 15 in 42 games for Liverpool, and he scored in the corresponding fixture at St James's last year as well. In that win. And also the most common goal scorer against Newcastle in recent years, that's Mo Salah as well, with goals in 13 games with 4 assists as well. Callum Wilson, on the other hand, he's got 2 goals in 10 Premier League games against Liverpool. Goalkeepers, Nick Pope, he had 13 clean sheets in 37 Premier League games for Newcastle last year. But Alisson as well, he had 14 clean sheets and 37 for Liverpool. I think as well, Alisson, he put a string of clean sheets together towards the end of the season when Liverpool were making the charge to try and get a last-minute entry into the Champions League. A few general stats to round off. Liverpool have come from behind to beat Newcastle 10 times in the Premier League. No team has managed more come from behind wins against a single opponent in Premier League history. Man United also have 10 come from behind wins against Newcastle and Southampton. And just to round off here, the last time that Newcastle won their first Premier League match by 4 clear goals and lost their second game away 1-0 to Man City was back in the 2002-2003 season, when they also played Champions League football that same year and finished 3rd. In the 3rd game that season, they also played Liverpool and they managed to get a 2-2 draw with Gary Speed and Alan Shearer grabbing 2 goals. Can they draw against Liverpool on Sunday? And that rounds up at the end and a coincidental fact.
Are you giving us a sneak preview to your predictions or something?
I'm hoping Lightning can strike twice there, maybe a bit more as well. Get the draw on Sunday for a point. Newcastle have a run in the Champions League and finish 3rd of the season. I'll be over the moon with that.
Well, it's a good argument. I'll get you to confirm that later on. But no, interesting. Very, very, very interesting. what I wanted to do is, and I want to see whether I can actually do this, because this is all new for me. I'm going to try and see if I can get it on the screen. If I can, I wanted to talk about the teams, and I don't know whether I'll be able to get it on the screen in just a second. But from your perspective, I just want to sort this little minor issue out. I just wanted to talk about, from your perspectives, the teams starting on Sunday. Lots of questions about individual players. I'm not going to talk about that because we've already had this conversation about some of the stick or the finger pointing that's happened from small sections of the fan base. Chris, I'll come to you just before I put it on the screen. You know, what ideally is your starting 11 going into the game against Liverpool?
You put me on the spot now, Pete, because
I apologise.
See, when you first asked me, my first thought was, well, we'll just be unchanged. But then I thought, I mean, I said to you lads, didn't I, on the review show for Man City? Excuse me. I said that it wouldn't surprise me to see Harvey Barnes come in. That's not me saying, oh, we need to drop Anthony Gordon. I'm not saying that, but I just wonder whether this is an opportunity for Eddie to shake it up. I think for me, ideal, to answer your question, I think Pope in goal. I'm saying Burn left back, Trippier right back, and then the two centre backs being Shaw and Botman, which we're fully used to. I think some may argue that Sean Longstaff may come in, but I actually think he'll stick with the three. I think Bruno will have the bit between his teeth this week for obvious reasons, which we don't need to go into, but I think you all know what I'm talking about. So I think Bruno's going to have a brilliant game this weekend. You know, to kind of show that he's really fully behind the team and that, you know, everyone should get behind him and the rest of the lads. So I think it will be Bruno, Joe Linton and Tonali. And then up front, I'm going to predict. I can't even believe I'm saying this. It wouldn't surprise me to see a front three of Barnes, Wilson and Murphy. And that I'm really surprising myself saying that. But I just wonder whether Eddie Howe wants to try and go in with a new mentality. I mean, equally, but isn't this great though? This is the best thing about having options, because we've got so many options. If he played exactly the same team that played against City, I've got no problem with that. If he brought Barnes in for Gordon, again, no problem. Some people would say they want Barnes in on the left and then they want Gordon to replace Miggy on the right. My big issue with that is we've yet to see Anthony Gordon kick a football for Newcastle on the right-hand side of the midfield, or the wing, if you like. So that would be my only concern with that. But is Eddie Howe going to go to Callum Wilson? Go and show why you should be starting week in, week out. You've got the opportunity. It's your place to lose. Go and score some goals against Liverpool. I don't know. Do I want Alexander Isak to be dropped? No. But I just wonder whether the mentality will change and whether he wants, you know, an eager Callum Wilson to really be pushing those centre backs for Liverpool, which is probably going to be Van Dijk and Konate, or Van Dijk and Matip, as Neil said before. I don't know. It's so hard. That front three is really difficult to call, and obviously the option of having Sean Longstaff in the middle. I don't think Elliot Anderson will start, but for me, the front three is going to be particularly interesting because I genuinely couldn't call it.
Keith, have you got an opinion on based on what Chris has said? That front three is interesting. You went Harvey Barnes, Wilson, and Murphy. You know, it's a complete change there. Is that something you agree with, Keith, from a tactical point of view for Newcastle?
It's an interesting one, put it this way, to change it up a bit. You know, generally, I would be inclined to go with Barnes for sure. I just think he's got the end product really and proven to get the end product in there. So I would definitely include Harvey Barnes. I think Jacob Murphy he's been one of the better, most improved players, hasn't he, over the last sort of season and a half. So I could see that. So do you take Almiron out the side, give Almiron a breather, and put Murphy in there? You know, over his space. You know, and the biggest headache for me, one of the biggest headaches in the side, is definitely Wilson and Isak. Really, they both scored in that first game at St James's Park. Isak got the 2 goals. I do, I do like Wilson, I've got to say, and it's the toughest one really for me to pick between them. I think there's, you could make a point to say, in an argument to say that Isak scores the more unpredictable goals, more flair in them, whereas Wilson's a bit more reliable on his goals. Yep, definitely Barnes. Happy to go with Wilson over Isak for the odd game. I think you do have to rotate them. We are about to go into a busy September season, aren't we? Really, part of the season, and there's probably going to be games where Wilson starts, Isak rests, and vice versa. I'm not sure over Almiron, and I'm not sure over Murphy coming in over Almiron though. But I do rate both. I just think Almiron's proven that a bit more, and he's got the electric pace, hasn't he? Still.
It's so difficult though, isn't it? Even me saying it and then Pete repeating what I said. Like, as Pete said it, I was gonna go, oh no, I'm not sure. But like, I could genuinely see him doing that, and I do wonder if the biggest one for me, or the hardest one to predict for me, is Wilson and Isak. Because the more I'm thinking about it now, after saying Wilson, I'm thinking, is Eddie Howe gonna go? He's chomping at the bit. He's really gonna. He really, really will have a point to prove. And is it a good opportunity? And then bring Isak on with 65, 70 minutes to go, and Liverpool flagging a little bit.
You can make the point as well that both have not let the sides down.
No, they haven't.
Really. They haven't. When Isak's came back from injury, coming back, it took him a couple of games to get him. Once he hit his stride, and then Wilson towards the end, once Wilson also had a drop off in form when he got going at the end of the season, from April onwards, he's your top scorer in the Premier League.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's going to be an interesting one. I'm going to keep the tactics board for another time. But look, you've thrown me, Chris. I've got to be honest.
I've thrown myself.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see what other people have got their opinions on it. Yano's put, keep saying this, Miggy.
Take control, mate. Take control.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, Yano just put, keep saying this, Miggy, Barnes and Gordon need an advanced fullbacks to play 1-2s. Isak can beat a man, much like ASM. So, again, an interesting option. Jamie's gone. I think we can go 4-4-2. Interesting. That's a complete change to what we're used to. Complete change. 4-4-2. Be interesting to see how we'd actually kind of set up for that one. Jordan 2 for Life says Gordon has blistering pace. We need that against Liverpool, especially in the first 60 minutes. We had a good game against Villa. Why drop him for Barnes? Isak can't be dropped for this game. No way. To be fair, you had Barnes out of the team. I thought you'd have had him 100% starting. With the Everton Liverpool links, he could be bang up for this one. For sure.
This is it. You're absolutely right, Pete. And this is the difficulty, isn't it? Because I'm thinking, yeah, you're right. Gordon is going to be bang up for this, and he will want to beat Liverpool more than anybody else on that pitch, probably.
Also, as well, against the game. Sorry, Chris. In the game against Liverpool, the energy last season. Newcastle were 2-0 down, and he really started to come on from there. Really, didn't he? And certainly in that game, as you say, the Liverpool connection.
I mean, Pete, what about you? I know you said you were not going to do the tactics board this week. What would your starting 11 be, based on hearing what me and Keith have said, and have we thrown any curveballs in for you? What would be the team you would start if you had to pick right now?
Yeah, you're definitely throwing curveballs in for me. I wasn't expecting certainly that front three. Chris. I'm not going to lie. Look, the back five is the back five. I think Burn will play. I don't see him making massive changes. You're not going to get Lewis Hall starting. Although I think some fans will probably want it and maybe ask for it. I don't think it will happen. The midfield three is interesting. I've got to be honest with you guys.
Pete, just to let you know, I've put something in the private chat. Have a look at it, and I'm going to see whether I don't know whether I've kicked you off there. I don't know.
Maybe later in the game. Maybe later in the game. It's an interesting thought. Oh God, you throwing me again.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm gonna say the midfield three of Joe Linton, Bruno, and Tonali is probably our best and most technical midfield that we have currently. I'm going to say that outright. I think that's going to be the midfield that starts. I think others, Longstaff and Willett, give us something different. But I don't think either of them start ahead of what we've already got in that midfield. That's just my opinion. And I think, in particular, what happened on social media, particularly with Bruno the other day, I think Eddie Howe's going to be more inclined to go with that midfield again. So I think it'll be Joe Linton, Bruno, Sandro, Tonali, however they suit. Whether it's Bruno on the right side, Sandro sitting, or vice versa, I don't know. But I think that'll be your midfield three. Up top, Isak has to start for me. He has to start. Like, I get the frustrations with Callum Wilson, but as I said to you boys, I said it over 6 months ago, maybe even 8 months ago. I said, when Isak's fit, Isak is our number one striker, and he has to start these games for Newcastle. There's no doubt about it. On the left-hand side, look, you know how much I love Harvey Barnes, but I just think this is the game for Gordon. If you want Gordon to really stamp his authority on starting in the first 11, there's no better game for him than Liverpool at home. To go out there and say, go and show that you should be starting every week. Go and get us an assist or two. Go and get us a goal. Go and win us the game by creating big moments down that side. Now, Neil talked quite rightly about Trent Alexander-Arnold. As a creator, he's superb. I'll tell you something. Anthony Gordon will get joy against him defensively.
Yeah.
On Sunday. There's no doubt about it. That pace and directness that we saw at the beginning of the second half at the Etihad, like we talked about, Chris, in the review, when he went for that fullback, Kyle Walker, when he went for him in the second half and really tried to create moments, he had the beating of him. I think if he does that on Sunday against Trent, I think he's going to get a lot of joy, and I think this could be the perfect game for him. And then it's on the right-hand side. I've got to go Miggy. I'm gonna go with the same team. I actually argued with myself about potentially starting Barnes and having him and Gordon switch. That was initially my thought, but I don't know whether this early on in the season that Howe's going to play that card yet. I do think in games this season, you'll see Gordon and Barnes, whichever side, start the game together. But I don't think it's quite yet. So I think he's going to position with Miggy. What's that? But as an option, yes, thank you.
That was in the private chat, by the way, PDK. That was in the private chat.
Just so you know, this was a conversation we had on the back of the Man City game. And I did mention about Tino Livramento coming on and playing right wing.
You called it, didn't you, Pete?
In front of Trippier. And look, I thought it might be an option late in the game if we're winning. If we're winning, to kind of give us an outlet still, but have two right backs. You know, Tino Livramento can play further forward, but have that solidity there. I don't think they're going to start with it. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the perfect way to introduce Tino Livramento into the game, is play him in front of Trippier, get them working together. If we're winning, If we're winning 2-0, 2-1, 1-0, whatever it is, and we want to kind of close up shop on the wings and stop them getting any joy, that might be an option later on in the game. So PDK, thank you for putting that out. Chris, you put it in the chat earlier. It may well be an option, but I'm going to stick with the same team. I'm going to stick with the same team for now because I think there's still lots of quality there. In my mind, and I don't know whether I'm wrong, please tell me if I'm wrong, boys, and people in the chat. I don't know. I'm not about changing the team just yet because I've still got Villa in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
And we destroyed Villa at St. James's Park.
Pete, what are your thoughts on that from Charlie Hotspur? Because no one's spoken about that this season, and we saw Eddie Howe revert to that at the back end of last season. I'm not saying that's how he starts, but people were talking about, somebody mentioned in the chat about a 4-4-2, and I'm thinking that they're thinking because they want Wilson and Isak on the same pitch. And given that there is all of that insecurity, and I think it's fair to say that, and Neil would probably argue it, but all that insecurity around Liverpool's backline, and we saw the way Bournemouth really caused some problems early on. Is this an opportunity to kind of really go gung-ho? And how did you feel about that at the back end of last season? Because some people loved it, some people weren't sure. Do you think that's an option, first of all? And go to you first, then Keith. And second of all, do you see him actually doing that, or do you think that's not on the table?
Oh, I don't know.
So many options, isn't it? There's so many options.
I think, in my mind, my one thought to that, what Charlie's put on there, is all our eggs in one basket.
Mm.
And I wouldn't want us to do what we did last season. Because remember last season, we were kind of saying, what's the option off the bench?
There was no plan B. There was well, what do we do now? Because we're not breaking it. What do we do?
Exactly. And that's my overriding thought. Why go all in and play our two best strikers in the starting 11? And then at 60 minutes, if they're both starting to tire, we haven't then got an option. Whereas if you're bringing on a fresh Callum Wilson, who's going to run at defenders, be big and strong, hold up the ball. If we're winning, it could be perfect. Win a few free kicks high up the pitch. It's perfect. The other way around, you've got Isak that's got running in and behind. He can hold on to the ball. He can create little moments, catch teams on the counter-attack because they're trying to push forward to get a goal. It's a perfect scenario, but playing them both, I just don't think it's right. And the fact that we've got Gordon and Barnes, we've got Miggy and Murphy, we've got options on the wings. We don't need to be playing one of our strikers on the left-hand side or the right-hand side anymore. Am I wrong? Keith, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree, really. I think, for me, Almiron and Barnes up top, and then you've got it's either go with Isak or Wilson. It's very marginal, but if you go on the basis of the first game, the 2 goals narrowly, you give it to Isak. But I agree, you're limited in your options. It's good to have Wilson and Isak on the pitch at some point, maybe in the second half. In answer to the question earlier as well, I do like what Howe was doing towards the end of the last season. It certainly produced end product in the Chelsea game of the last season when Anthony Gordon got his first goal for the club. And I do think there's a lot of potential there to move forward. The under 21 form in the summer, he's really growing in confidence there, really. But at the moment, I would just go with Barnes, Almiron, and Isak for the time being up top. Isak stroke Wilson. I'm still not decided yet, but maybe narrowly just give it to Isak.
It's interesting.
As they often say, the first 10 games of the season really does take you about 10 games to see how things are shaping up, what's working, what isn't really working, isn't it? Really, before you can say he's made a really good start of the season. This one is a little bit out of form. It does take a few games before you come to that decision, really.
Here's a question for you both, and I just want one word answer. If Joe Linton is out for the game because obviously we've seen Joe Linton come off last week. Who do you put in place of Joe Linton in the midfield? Is it Elliot Anderson? Is it Sean Longstaff? Or is there another option?
That's a great question. Keith, I'm going to let you go first on that one.
So you would have Tonali and you would have Bruno as well, wouldn't you? Out of the two. Yeah. So you'd have Tonali intercepting things. Okay.
Lewis Smiley, Keith?
Maybe off the bench, but I would say at the moment it would either be Longstaff. I would say Longstaff maybe just over Anderson, even though Anderson's had a brilliant pre-season. It's just I think Longstaff is the more experienced out of the two, and that's why he shades it for me at the moment. But definitely Elliot Anderson had a brilliant season, and I wouldn't argue if he was given this decision. If Joe doesn't play and Eddie's got to make that call.
And just before you answer, Pete, just as a little cherry on the top, you'll remember the match at St James's Park where everything fell apart.
I know what you're going to say.
Poor Elliot got sacrificed, didn't he?
Yeah. It's his time to redeem himself. That's what you're going to say.
And Pete, this is the thing with that midfield three that we were speaking about. We spoke about it earlier with Neil. With that midfield three being so, I'd say unnatural, because we know that they're probably going to play with Gakpo and Szoboszlai. Is somebody like Elliot Anderson buzzing round who they don't really know how to deal with because they're expecting Joe Linton and Tonali, who are far more technical, but they won't be expecting this bustling young, 19, 20-year-olds who's just jumping into everything, and then they've got a game on their hands. So anyway, tell me your thoughts, Pete.
No, the high press is perfect. The quick answer is, I would prefer Anderson to start, but I think Eddie Howe will go with Longstaff. That's the quick answer to it. And you touched on Eddie Anderson for that reason. And I was going to say it as well, but you're absolutely right, Chris. Redemption, redeem himself. Didn't get a chance to fully show his ability because of the red card. He had to be sacrificed. What a way to kind of, go full circle, really, and be a potential match winner for Newcastle. The one thing I'll say is that Elliot Anderson he will do what Liverpool's midfielders don't like. He'll press and win the ball high up the pitch, and he will create moments moving forward. St James's Park, he'll be chasing down everybody. Trent on the ball, chasing down Szoboszlai, McAllister. He'll be winning the ball high up the pitch. There is no doubt about it. But I think the safer option for legs and ability of getting around the pitch, thinking maybe more defensively, I think he will probably go for Longstaff if Joe Linton isn't available. And look, we have no idea. Joe Linton looks like he's broken his legs some days, and then he's back training 2 days later, and then back to the next week. So I fully expect Joe Linton to play, in my opinion. I'll be surprised if he's not. Andrew, just to mention, the clown that was making the inappropriate comments, I did boot him out. I think Daz and Lisa have made some points on that as well, that they've reported him as well. But yeah, no comments like that, particular of any sort of racial nature or anything that's not accepted. So yeah, we are very quick to boot him out. Thank you to those in the chat that were highlighting it. I can't go back up into the chat just to find out exactly who you were, but you know who you are. Thank you for just raising that in the chat. Superb stuff as well. We don't get it very often. We've got a great community. Let's not kind of dwell on it. But yeah. We've handled it. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Sorry. Yarrow raised a good point. It's probably unlikely, but I do like his thought. Imagine that. Wouldn't it be refreshing to see Livramento and Hall start? Klopp would shit a brick.
Would you? The thing I'll throw back to Yano is: would you start? Are you starting them both at fullback, or are you going on the conversation of starting Livramento further forward? It would throw Klopp. I think. I think Klopp would have to massively rejig what he's doing. I really do. But Yeah. Come back to us on that, Yana. That's an interesting scenario, should we say? Look, we're gonna start to wrap this up. We're gonna get some predictions. We got Neil's prediction. He's happy for a draw. That excites me. I'm not gonna lie. The fact that he's saying I'll take a draw and I'll get out of there shows that although there's a big front there from Neil, and he always does, there may be a little bit of worry just in the back of his mind that we're going to be coming to play on Sunday. But he did eventually go for the win and say that he thinks that they'll narrowly win. But look, before we get to that, I think do we need to make the noise?
Super chat received.
Yes, we do. And Rich Dublin, thank you very much for your $4.99 donation to the channel. Massive thanks to you and your continued support for the channel. We really appreciate it. Yana also said, just as a side point, you could put them both in midfield. You could whack them both in midfield.
But this is the beauty of these wing backs, isn't it? Because Hall has been known to play, up further up, even in centre midfield or even on a wing position, because we've seen how good he is going forward. Yeah. As can Livramento. It would throw Klopp. It would throw him. And if you've got natural defenders who are playing as wingers, when they're coming up against, the likes of Trent or the likes of Andy Robertson, what better wingers to have than people who are already accustomed to having that defensive mindset? It's an interesting theory.
Keith, what do you think? Both in midfield?
Yeah, it would be interesting, certainly, and it would certainly throw Klopp off. But would that be a Howe thing to do? Would he, try both untested and get both a game right from the scratch? Two new players. Hall, I think Hall's one. They're gonna build Hall up gradually. I think, and probably Livramento as well. Yeah. Be featured, coming on as off the bench. And then obviously get a chance to showcase later on in the season as well. And some of those games that are coming up as well, some of those League Cup games, and it's an ideal opportunity to play from the start.
Just to add in, Pete, Rich learned his lesson, because Rich, we always say if you throw in a super chat, we always want to hear from you. We always want a comment or a question. And Rich has gone here. Question to go with the super chat. Do you think we are finished in the transfer market? I don't personally. Could be a surprise. So, Pete, start with you. Are we finished?
I'm going to say yes, because I want to be surprised. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say yes, we're finished, but I want to be surprised. That's what I want. I want more. But I do think we're finished. I know, Chris, you banged on about not being finished. You reckon there's another sneaky deal behind the scenes. Keith, what do you think?
Well, he has a question to you. Is anybody going out the door to balance the books? Is Ryan Fraser going out the door? Anybody like that to make a couple of things happen? Because I could definitely see it if one or two go out the door. One or two last minutes. The thing is about this ownership model. They generally do their business and they're well planned and calculated. I could definitely see something similar to like a Hall, really like one of those with an obligation to buy. I think they're being very astute in the market, thinking ahead. So why not?
I agree with Keith. All that. Oh, sorry, Keith, go on.
I was just about to add, Chris, which area would you think that the club would next be looking to strengthen before the window shuts? If they could just have one more player that would surprise us, either as a signing or a loan.
Just one more. It's either another central midfielder, i.e. a number 6, or a right centre back. And for me, if you push me on a Keith, I actually think probably the right centre back, because I wonder whether Lewis Miley is going to get some more minutes than we all expect this season, and having Elliot Anderson there as well. I would like a number 6, a specialised number 6. That would be my choice. But I think Eddie and the team would look, because for me, I do feel like we are a little bit light in the central defence. Because yes, we've got Botman, and then we've got Bain as his backup, and yes, we've got Shah with Lascelles as his backup, but that's only 4 centre backs. All it takes is a suspension and an injury, and then you're playing with 2. And if one of those 2 then goes, you're struggling. You're really struggling. And do we want to see Paul Dummett centre back? Probably not. Certainly not in the Champions League. So I actually think they would probably do a right centre back, but I'd like the number 6, being honest. And all I would add into whether I think my business is done. I think there's a possibility it might not be. We saw Alexander Isak coming in late on in the window. And wouldn't it be great if we, had like a new manufacturer, like Adidas, coming in and ready to come in on the 1st of September for a little bit of money? I don't know.
I tell you what, these questions are just sparking extra calls. We're trying to end the show here and get predictions from
3 hours later. We'll be rolling 3 hours later with all these questions.
Oh my God! Don't remind me of that, Keith. Oh my God! What
the celebration is staying up and getting the 40 points for 1 hours. So,
oh my God! These lonely boys still remind me of that night. Was it a 4-hour show?
Yeah,
celebrating with Norwich getting the 40 points.
Oh God! Unbelievable! But it was a great show. Loved it. Of what I can remember. But look, you guys get me excited. I've already kind of closed off shop, and you're talking about right centre backs, number 6 coming in. Just as I thought I was out, you kind of just pulling me back in to the transfer talk. Look, I'm sure we'll get into it as the days and weeks roll on. But look, I want to get back to predictions for this game Sunday. Are you thinking we're going to win? We're going to bounce back after the Etihad? Or do you think it's going to be kind of a slow build? Chris, what do you think?
Oh, is in a prediction, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've got to go in confident. I've got to. I can't even a draw. I think I'd be disappointed if we got a draw. Genuinely would, because I think it's a great opportunity for us to go and take advantage. And I'm out with the lads, as I say, and I need those 3 points. I need those Dragon Knights. I need them. So I'm going to say 3-1 Newcastle.
Let's go for the win. I'm going for the win. And you know what? I'm going to go confident. I'm going to say we're going to get a clean sheet. I'm going to say 2-0. 2-0 Newcastle. Clean sheet. Botman masterclass. Pope redeems himself. Come on. Go for the win. The main man, Mr. Doom, the Mr. Thriller, 00 Stato, whatever you want to call him, Keith Roll, the legend that you are. What are you going for this week?
It's been a long time, hasn't it? It's been a long time since we've got anything. Obviously, a win against Liverpool. It's been long awaited since we managed to beat Liverpool at St. James's Park. We should have beat them away at Anfield. It's a long winning and it's long deserved. And if Liverpool win on Sunday, it'll be the first time since last season when Newcastle lost 2 back-to-backs, when they also lost to Liverpool and Man City in consecutive games. But I'm going to go with me fact, what I was saying earlier, and I'd like this to come true at least, where I gave you the stat about and the comparison about 2002, 2003, and I think on Sunday it could be this. A bit like it was in 2002.
Go for the Desmond. Go for the Desmond.
Newcastle need to show a bit of battle. They need to show the fight to come back after that performance or the result against City, and there'll be a lot of people fired up. I know Bruno's going to be fired up. He hasn't really played against Liverpool. I think he's only played once, and obviously he missed out last time, and he's going to be really fired up against this one. So let's hope that Newcastle minimum get a point on Sunday.
Come on. Look, not quite the win that me and Chris have gone forward. The chest is not out; it's partly out. You think you were going to get goals, but I think we're working on him, Chris. We're going to get him there by the end of this season. I think.
Yeah,
Oh, you're on
absolutely.
mute.
Sorry, it wouldn't be a show without me being on mute. Sorry, I was saying no. He's close. He's close. He's nearly there.
He is. And just before we go,
Received.
another super chat in the house. Many thanks to Nobby Clark. It's gone 4-1 Newcastle. Gordon, Isaac 2, and Barnes late. Slap your hand off for that. That's for sure. Massive win that would be. And really a proper statement as well. And look, we have before we go to the sponsors and all the rest of it, before we see ourselves out, a massive thanks to Tampa 2, and I can't remember where the comment is. Chris is on it as always. From Dad, and I know Lisa put something in there as well. Thank you once again, Tampa 2, for gifting 5 memberships. Massive thank you to you. Huge support of the channel, and look, 5 people have got memberships to be part of the prize draws and to be part of other things that will be coming along during the season. That's for sure. So well done to you, the members, and Tampa, absolute legend for sorting that out. Who's watching the private jet? It's not me. He is.
I love it.
You see, I normally do the eye roll emoji when I see the private jets come about, whereas the other 3 boys, their ears pick up and their eyes are in, and then wanting to know everything about it. But look, it is what it is. Just before we go, got our predictions in. Massive thanks to our sponsors. So huge thank you to theradiatorshed.com. Russ and the boys, thank you for all of your work and support to the channel. And look, they provide top quality materials made from plate steel, providing longevity, all designed and manufactured in Italy. And aluminium rads are very environmentally friendly and are perfect for heat source pumps. They offer a home survey service and will install if required. And just take a look at just a few examples of some of these quality radiators. If you haven't got involved, please do. And I'm sure, as Daz mentions in many of the shows, if you throw in that you are, a subscriber to Loaded, it may well sort you out. So who knows? Let's wait and see. But look, massive thank you as well to Bathroom Designs H2O, the Northeast's largest suppliers of Villoy and botched bathroom wear. Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, ran by the family. So get down to the showroom on 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate in Gateshead, and show your support. No one in the shower today. Nearly catches Keith. Not quite, but just some of the quality of bathrooms, as we always show you. And there'll be more picks on the way, no doubt, as well. And look, our friends, the Geordie Journos, we always show our support to those guys. Look, scan and sign up for our free NUFC newsletter. Just scan the QR code just there and make sure. And one thing we don't do is plug the memberships. Can only do it, I believe, on your mobile phone. If you click join, $1.99 a month, the blue button join, only takes a second to do in an instant. All of us Loaded boys are members as well to our channel, to emphasize that support that we have for this channel and where we want to take it. So yeah, become a member and consider joining the Loaded Ultras. Look, guys, we are there. Fantastic away days, a little bit longer than we expected, but superb chat. Chris, always a pleasure, never a chore. Didn't say it at the beginning, but Brandy and Blaze are certainly back in business, as always. Double O Stato, Thriller from Manila, Dr. Doom, Jaws, I can't remember all the names, but look, most of all, Keith Roll, legend, thank you for your stats, as always, an absolute pleasure.
Just to jump in, Pete, Jamie Brewerton is shouting for your attention, and he's saying, Pete, ask Keith my bet, please. Do you know what that is? Unless he's put it further up in the chat. Maybe that's why I missed it. I wondered with it. Oh, here we go. Keith, you pay 5 months membership. If I lose, I pay you. What's this? What is this?
What is going on?
Keith, can I do you a bet? I give you draw. I'm saying Newcastle home win. And then he's saying, if that's the case, Keith, you pay 5 months membership, and if I lose, I pay you.
Don't answer right now. Look, Jamie, we're on Twitter.
Yeah.
What we'll do, let us know, and we'll respond to you. We'll give Keith some time to consider that, and we'll go to that. But yeah, a nice little angle on that. Maybe we can bring that in as we go along in away days. But something to consider, Keith, that's for sure. But look, massive pleasure to everyone in the chat for sticking with us. Superb questions, superb comments. Thank you for those that pointed out the clown in the chat. This is what we do. This is our community. Thank you to Tampatoon and all the donations, whether it's memberships or donations to the channel. Massively appreciate it. Neil, superb guest from Anfield Rap. It's why he's always on. Go and check out Anfield Rap. They've got some great content as well. We're going to win. I know we are. I'm confident. We're going to win, guys. I don't know why. I'm just confident we're going to win. St. James's Park, 4:30 kickoff, Sunday.
It's going to be a rocking atmosphere, isn't it?
Oh, man.
It's going to be
jumping. You lucky sods that have got tickets for the games. You enjoy and make absolute noise for our boys. Get behind them. Get behind Miggy. Get behind Joe Linton. Get behind Bruno. Get behind them all. But those boys in particular that have got stick this week because they didn't deserve it. We've not had a bad start to this Premier League season. And as Keegan says, we're still fighting. We are still fighting. We ain't giving up. But look, until then, have a great rest of the week. Fantastic weekend. And we pray for the 3 points. Of course, we do love playing away. Guys, how'd you like that?
Drink it.